Okay guys, hi there, Joe from Snakehouse MTG. Recently I've been in conversation with Anthony and we are trying to understand the reason why Sultai doesn't seem to work as an archetype compared to Jund or Abzan. Why has it not been anywhere near as popular? So me and Anthony, we have decided we are going to try and make it work. So I have put together a first draft of a potential mid-rangey Sultai list. My list might be completely different from Anthony's, completely different archetype even. But straight to the point, I've gone for mid-range. That's where I feel most comfortable. But I thought I would introduce a mechanic that I feel is highly underplayed. And I'm not 100% on numbers just yet, but the mechanic is Flash. Now, Flash I feel is criminally underused in Modern. Subtlety, Endurance, Brazen Borrower, they all have Flash, and Flash, in my experience, is just one of the most powerful mechanics in MTG. So I thought I'd just show you my deck. So I have a 23 land deck, 23 land mana base. Now, so as for 1-drops, I've got 3 Fatal Push, 3 Inquisition, 3 Thoughtseize. Because there's a lot of Murktide region around at the moment, I've decided to go with a 3-3 split. Normally, if that wasn't the case, I would go 4 Inquisition, 2 Thoughtseize, but that's just currently what the meta's like at the moment. I have 2 copies of Ignoble Hierarch. I'm on the fence about whether this should be ignoble or whether it should be noble. I feel like the black mana might come into play a little bit more often than the blue. So we'll see how this goes. So as for 2-drops, Ledger Shredder, it seems like a pretty good list to take advantage of this card. So 1/3 for 2, but every time you play 2 spells in a turn, or even if your opponent does it, of course it gets a +1/+1 counter and you connive. So then we also have pretty much a mainstay of all mid-range lists, old Tarmo Daddy. So Tarmogoyf, it's a fantastic card. Let me show you one of my favourites of all time. So Tarmogoyf's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So hopefully we can make this quite a big one. A big Tarmogoyf using things like Fatal Push, Inquisition to get cards out of our opponent's hands and off the battlefield. Drown in the Lock. Now this one, in my opinion, is the best counterspell in Modern as it is at the moment. So I'm really happy to be able to use this. So the reason I've gone with this is because it can destroy creatures and it can counter target spells. Generally speaking, in Modern, with fetches and things like that, we are going to have opponents putting cards into their graveyard. So generally, 1, 2 and 3-drops, this isn't too much of an issue to counter spells. So yeah, it's just fantastic. I love this card. I want to go to the next one. So Tainted Indulgence. This one, I'm on the fence about this one. I kind of want it to work. I want to see it do well. But I do feel that this deck does need to push the the card advantage. You know, it doesn't have access to Ragavan, it doesn't have access to Seasoned Pyromancer, so you know we need to find some card advantage, or at least some card searching, because the discard can be, you know, quite useful, and I'll explain why in a moment. So then we have a one-of Brazen Borrower. Now this one I'd be happy to play two, but I'm just testing one for the moment, just to see how things go. Let's look at the next one. We have, of course, 3 copies of Liliana of the Veil. So this is something that pretty much, if you're playing mid-range and you're not playing Liliana, you're probably not doing it right. This one just really rips your opponent's hand apart, and generally speaking, hopefully your top decks are going to be better than your opponent's. So then we'll come to Endurance. So Endurance is probably the most commonly played creature in Modern at the moment, but most people play it in the sideboard. We have the ability to play it in the main board. Now again, so this is where Flash comes in. So Flash, Reach, when Endurance enters the battlefield, up to 1 target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order, and it has Evoke, exile a green card from your hand. So I like this one because it has a good effect against other Murktide decks, and it has Reach, which is really useful. So the next one, we've got a one-of Grist. So this one, it can fill your graveyard a little bit because we are running Murktide. Murktide is the top end, though it's not the mainstay or main feature of the deck. It's just our top end beta. This one's a useful one to have. I think it's better than the 4th Liliana, so I'm happy with that. Then we have 4 copies of Shardless Agent. So it's a 3 mana 2/2 with Cascade. So the hope is that we can cascade into something like a Tainted Indulgence, a Tarmogoyf, Ledger Shredder, and if we're unlucky, a Fatal Push, and there's no creatures on the board. But you know, I'm trying to minimise the chances of that happening. Then we have 2 copies of Subtlety. So again, this one is just put 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell on top or bottom of their library. Player's choice. So this is a criminally underplayed card. It's really, really powerful. And then we top off the curve with a couple of Murktide Regents. Interestingly, with Murktide, there aren't a ton of instants and sorceries. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we have 10, 11, 12, 13. We only have 13 instants and sorceries. I'm still on the fence about this. I think that if we can make it a 5/5 for 2, then we'll be okay. But if not, then I would be tempted to downgrade to a Gurmag Angler. Or even maybe a one-of Gurmag, one-of Tasiga, the Golden Fang. I want to see how things go with Murktide. If I feel like we never quite have enough cards in our graveyard to kind of help Murktide be cast for 2, then we'll see what happens. But again, Thoughtseize can help, Inquisition can help, and Tainted Indulgence as well. That can help us discard cards. Grist puts one card into our graveyard. Liliana, of course, discarding cards from our hand. So we'll see what happens. So far I'm okay with this main board. Also, one other thing you might notice as well is that we have less interaction in the form of instants and sorceries. Generally, Jund has bolts as well. It has more kind of interactive spells. But because we have Endurance and we have Subtlety and we have Brazen Borrower, that makes up for it for us, I think. So being able to interact with our opponent using Subtlety, Brazen Borrower in particular, I think these are, really good, interaction spells that we can cast that are also creatures. So here I really want to take advantage of the flash element in this deck. I might even consider going up on endurances and up on subtleties, depending on how I feel about how powerful the flash element is. If I find it's just bonkers, then I might go up. But so for now, this is draft 1. In the sideboard, just very briefly, Veil of Summer seems pretty easy. It's this sideboard's a little bit of a wuss's sideboard. It's a lot of 2-ofs. So we have 2 Ethegust, just because I like the card, and I think it's good against Primeval Titan. 2 copies Mystical Dispute. Mystical Dispute is very good in Shardless decks because Shardless can't cast it, so therefore it's a counter spell that doesn't get wasted by Shardless. 2 Veil of Summer, 2 Endurance, 2 Assassin's Trophy. So Assassin's Trophy, I can't decide if I want the Drowns or the Assassin's Trophies in the main. For now, let's keep with the Drowns and we'll see what happens, see how useful they are. Because I guess Shardlessing into an Assassin's Trophy is always going to be better than Drown. But, we'll see what we come up against. Engineered Explosives. In fact, I think I made this decision right in the moment. I'm going to put the Assassin's Trophy in the main just because it's just occurred to me that Drown, if the opponent doesn't have enough cards in their graveyard to kill a creature, and we've cast Shardless into Drown on turn, maybe possibly turn 2, then it's really not very good then. So yeah, I'll put it in the side just because I think that extra interaction, if there are if it's a creature matchup, then we can always bring it in. So E and Chalice. So this Chalice and the Endurance there for the Living End matchups. I don't know how we're going to match up against them. I don't know if we're going to be fantastic or not, but let's give it a go.